Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of CEO at Smith, a signature event of the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland, College Park. Please note that this event is being recorded. I would like to extend an especially warm welcome to our featured guest and speaker, Global Chairman and CEO of EY, Mr. Carmine Sibio, and to our Interim Dean, Dr. Ritu Agarwal. We at the school are delighted that you, our speakers, as well as you, our audience, are here with us to kick off this new academic year. And I'm Rebecca Bellinger, the Executive Director of the Center for Global Business here at the Smith School, and I will be serving as your host today. This afternoon's event is indeed a special one in that it is brought to you as a collaboration between CEO at Smith and the Distinguished Speakers in International Business series. As most of you know, CEO at Smith is the Smith School's signature event that features executives at the top of leadership ranks in some of the best companies in the world. Our goal is to connect our community of students, alumni, faculty, and staff with leading business practitioners and innovators. The Distinguished Speaker Series is the key thought leadership series of the Center for Global Business and brings together policymakers, industry leaders, academia, and students to discuss emerging trends in international business. So today, we'll hear from the Global Chairman and CEO of EY about leadership, global business resilience, and how global companies like EY are overcoming challenges in today's economy. I'd like to thank the EY teams in the Northern Virginia and New York City offices who have worked with us to make this event possible. Specifically, I'd like to recognize two people. Ellen Polanski, Smith alumna, member of the board of the Center of Global Business, and Managing Director, Coordinating Partner, and New York Metro FinTech Advisory Leader. And Mark Ravinowitz, also a Smith School alumnus and assurance partner here in the Tyson's office. We appreciate your passion for the Smith School and for giving back to the community in such an important way. The event today takes place in two parts, so I'll turn it over now to Mark to say a few words about the second part of today.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, for that warm EY welcome. As the campus coordinating partner for the University of Maryland, I work closely with our campus recruiting team in various service lines to manage the relationship with the Smith Business School. In this role, and as a proud Smith alum, I'm thrilled to have our Global Chairman and CEO, Carmine Sibio, be featured in the CEO at Smith Speaker Series. After the Dean's session with Carmine, I invite the audience to stay with us as we immediately transition to a panel discussion with EY professionals who are also Smith alums. This will be a great opportunity for you to learn more about what we do and why students have named EY the world's #1 most attractive professional services firm for 4 straight years. I hope that you were able to stay and join us. Back to you, Rebecca.
Great, thanks, Mark. So before I turn it over to our speakers, let me share a few tips to help us move smoothly through this next hour together. As a reminder, the event is being recorded. It will be made publicly available via the school's website after the event. For optimal viewing today, please select the grid view in the upper right-hand corner of the WebEx screen so that you can see all the speakers on one screen at the same time. You can also hide your own video block by choosing View in the menu bar at the top left and clicking Hide Non-Video Participants. Please also keep yourself on mute throughout the presentation. At the time of registration, we collected questions from the audience for our speaker. I will call on the students who submitted these questions toward the end of the hour and have them ask those questions directly. Later on, as you are signing off of WebEx at the end of the first or the second hour, you'll see a pop-up window with a link to take our 2-minute survey. We appreciate in advance you're taking the time to complete that. And finally, if there are any technical difficulties on our end or on yours, we thank you in advance for your patience. It is now my very distinct pleasure to introduce our fearless leader, Interim Dean Dr. Ritu Agarwal. Dr. Agarwal is a distinguished university professor, the Dean's Chair of Information Systems, and the founding director of the school's Center for Health Information and Decision Systems. She is also a 2019 recipient of the prestigious Leo Award, recognizing her lifetime achievement in the field of information systems. Dr. Agarwal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am so delighted to kick off the new academic year, an academic year like we've never seen before with this wonderful event. The partnership between EY and the Smith School is a very special one. In 1981, EY launched the first endowed professorship at the Smith School. That is now occupied by my colleague, Larry Gordon, who 30 years later still wears the title with pride. Since then, EY has supported research, teaching innovations, and numerous programs for the students. We thank all our friends at EY for their support and continued partnership with the Smith School. I'd also like to thank the teams at the Office of the Dean, the Office of Career Services, Development and Alumni Relations, and the Center for Global Business for their collective efforts to make today's event a success. As they say, it takes a family. Now, it is my privilege to introduce our speaker, Carmine Sibio, EY's Global Chairman and CEO. In his role as Chairman and CEO, Carmine leads over 284,000 people, serving clients in more than 150 countries. Prior to being elected Chairman, Carmine served as EY's Global Managing Partner for Client Services, leading the execution of the organization's global strategy. He also currently co-chairs the EY Global Diversity and Inclusiveness Steering Committee. Carmine is a member of the board of Focusing Capital on the Long Term, and he plays an active role in the World Economic Forum. He co-chairs the Russia Foreign Investment Advisory Council with Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, and is a member of the Washington, D.C.-based U.S. Business Council Roundtable. Mr. Carmine has a BA from Colgate University and an MBA from New York University's Stern School of Business. He's also active in social causes. He's a board member of the Foundation for Empowering Citizens with Autism and Family Promise, and a member of the Board of Trustees of his alma mater, Colgate University. Please join me in welcoming EY's Global Chairman and CEO, Mr. Carmine Sibio. I will applaud for the rest of the audience. So Carmine, before I get to my long list of questions, I'd like to invite you to make a few opening remarks.
Thanks, Dean Agarwal. Thanks, Ritu. It's great to be here. It's these are fun events for me because I love speaking to the deans, but also the students. It's always a pleasure, and I always get something out of it. I also learn just like the students learn, and I will tell you, I've been in this role for about 18 months now or so. I did not expect us to have a global pandemic during my role. That certainly has changed things. I went from traveling 85% of my time all over the world. I literally would have a meeting in China on a Sunday and a meeting in Moscow on Monday morning at 8 a.m. My life has changed a lot with COVID. Now I'm in front of screens 12 hours a day or more, still talking to a lot of our clients and a lot of our people from around the world, just virtually. And I will tell you, while so many things have changed, really what's important hasn't changed. And I will tell you, I always talk to students, and by the way, just a little bit of some of my personal background. I'm married, I live in Summit, New Jersey, and I also have 4 children, 2 of which are in school, in university today. One graduated from Colgate, one's at Colgate and one's at Notre Dame. Unfortunately, none of them are at Maryland, but I do have a 4th who's a senior in high school, so Maryland maybe is on his list. But yeah, exactly. But I always tell students, I have 4 or 5 items that I talk about, just in terms of giving them some guidance and more based on my experience. And, my first one is really around openness and openness to new ideas and innovation. And while many people like to say they are open to new ideas and innovation, for some people it scares them. But I really encourage you, and the COVID period has highlighted this even more. We've had so many of our clients who've had to adapt to a new environment, so many of our clients who've had to change their supply chain, change even what they make, what they stand for because of the period. And this is why I always encourage our students and people at EY, be open and be innovative. That's something that I've tried to do during my career. Sometimes it's not easy because A lot of times it pushes us outside our comfort zone, but I think that's important. Be tech savvy. Now, what I mean by that is you don't have to be, the world's greatest programmer, but you have to be tech savvy. Everything we do today is around technology, and I would say certainly during the COVID period, this has become even more true. We use a convening technology called Microsoft Teams. We went from having 1,500 people in February on Microsoft Teams to having almost 300,000 people during the COVID period. And it was something that has enabled us to really work effectively. I love it now. Before I hardly ever used it. Now I use it to call people. Some people think I use it like an intercom from all over the world, which isn't good if you're on the other side of the world and you get woken up. But it's important to be tech savvy, and a lot of this is your own personal, really passion for technology. I think there are a lot of courses you can take and so forth, but being curious around technology is important. Think and act globally is another one of the things that I always talk about. And I know there's a lot out there around being more nationalistic. There are a lot of politics, geopolitics that are going on in the world. Me too. But I think it's important that our people continue to think globally. We are global as a business. Our clients are global as a business. And I think technology has forced that. So even with a startup today, if you're part of a startup, your market is global almost immediately. Where many years ago, your market would be very regional, and then maybe would get to super regional, to nationally, and so forth. Now it's global almost immediately. And therefore, it's important that we think global, regardless of the geopolitical situation. I think as business, the more we think about it that way, the more we will get over the geopolitical situation. But then probably one of my two more important factors that I always think about is building relationships. And for those of you, building relationships, for some of you comes naturally. For others, you have to work at it. During COVID, we've actually learned more and more about Dean Argowal, because what's happened is the relationships that we had already built, those are the ones that we're able to do work for, to sell work to have trust with. Building new relationships during COVID has actually been much more difficult because the interaction isn't the same. Now, if you're on video with someone every day and so forth, you will build a relationship, but we found it to be much, much harder. But this is why I say to all the students, continue relationships. It's important that as we go forward and as you start at a firm like an EY or an equivalent firm, that you build relationships. Those are relationships that you'll have throughout your business career forever. And then probably the most important is to find your passion and have fun with it. Whatever business area you want to get into, find your passion and have fun with it. And I'll give you a personal story on this. When I started at EY 35 years ago, which sounds like a long time, and it is a long time, but I one of my really good friends started with me. He was one of my high school friends, and we lost contact. We both started, and I always had a passion for financial services. That's what I really wanted to learn. I came into EY, I really wanted to be focused on financial services. He didn't have so much of a passion for a sector, and I remember us having these conversations. To him, it was more important which client he got assigned to in terms of the distance he had to commute to the client. Where for me, I would be okay if I had to commute 2 hours if I was getting more of the experience about what I wanted to really do. And it sounds simplistic, but it's the difference between learning and thinking of your career as a career versus thinking of your job as just a job. And my friend from day one always thought of it as just a job. And I think he didn't really have the passion for it. And that came out over the years. But I think it's important that you do what you're passionate about doing and that you really are focused and invest time in that as you go forward. So why don't I stop? I've probably talked more than I should at the beginning, Ritu, and come back to you.
Those were great comments, Carmine, and your team must have briefed you well because, you hit the two hotspots for the Smith School, technology and globalization. We have great strengths in those. And I love your point about building relationships. When I was briefing the new cohorts of students coming in, I told them their relationships would start in a virtual environment and they needed to build that trust. So great conversation. So tell us something about, your personal journey to the leadership of one of the most storied professional service organizations in the world. I mean, EY is a household name, but I do know that the road to the top is never linear. So, share with us a little bit about any circuitous turns, twists that your career took getting here.
Well, thanks, Ritu. As you mentioned, I graduated with a BA from Colgate, believe it or not, in chemistry. So that was a twist and turn right off the bat.
Right.
I did a senior thesis on tin halides, which now I'm not sure I could even put up the chemical formula for. But I was thinking of going into the sciences, and I was far along, and then I decided that I really wanted to get into the business world, which is where I went into a program at NYU Stern. So, and then eventually got my MBA in finance from Stern. But, I joined EY, as I said before, passionate about financial services. I worked on financial services clients all along the way. Started in audit. I started in 1985 in audit. I made partner in 1995. Then I started. So the year that I made partner, I lost the biggest client we had and the biggest client that I worked on. It was a bank called Bankers Trust, which is now part of Deutsche Bank. And I found myself a new partner without a client, without a client that took up 80% of my time. So that was point number one on, forks in the road. But fortunately, I built up a lot of skills around capital markets and derivatives and so forth. And I and three other partners started what we call our risk management and regulatory practice in financial services. And time that I got to be very entrepreneurial as part of EY. And it's a time that that the firm gave us a lot of leeway. So we were able to hire people from the outside to really strengthen our risk management and regulatory practice in financial services. That started literally with 3 or 4 partners, and then we recruited a few managers and staff as part of the group. Today, that's over $1 billion business just in the U.S. And so that was really an exciting part of my career and just a really rewarding and fulfilling part of building a business. Then I also spent a lot of time on many major clients, including clients like Goldman Sachs and so forth, on the consulting side. So I shifted away from audit more to consulting during that time. And eventually I ended up running financial services in the US and then financial services globally before I got into these management roles. I love being with clients. I love helping them solve issues. I do that today with other CEOs. And it's really what gives me passion and reward for what I do. I almost left 3 times. One time I was pretty much out the door, and a group of partners, and actually one of my mentors, who was, mention her name was Regina Dolan. She was one of the first women partners in financial services. She actually left EY to become the CFO of Payne Weber at the time. And even though she had left, I was leaving to go to work at another Wall Street firm, and she called me up to have dinner and convinced me that I was making the dumbest decision of my life. And I, of course, said, Regina, but you left. And she said, yeah, I left because this was my dream role that I always wanted to have. You're not leaving for your dream role, so you shouldn't leave. And she convinced me not to leave. And that was also a fork in the road, if you want to call it that, in terms of staying with EY. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about my personal journey. And every day there's another fork in the road and things where we have to make decisions and move on. And the power of, really being a culture of collaboration in Argowal is very, very important to me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's a great story to hear, especially, because your mentor told you that you didn't find the job that was really sparking your passion, and that's a fabulous takeaway for our students. Let me turn a little bit now to the global aspects of EY. I mentioned 284,000 people, 150 countries. That's a lot of different political climates. That's a lot of different cultures. And I'm curious, how do you build this organization, this culture of collaboration with so many distinct dynamics across the globe?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, and I view this as a huge strength of EY in terms of when I compare it to other companies out there and other corporates in particular, where many U.S. corporates or European corporates or Chinese corporates start in a country and then they try to expand into other countries, and they typically do it by hiring some local people, sending expats over, and trying to build a culture around what they think their culture is. So we have an advantage and have had an advantage that that we actually have started in each local country. So we embody the cultures of the countries. Then our issue is to get it all working, to your point, get it all working together, as opposed to trying to push something out from the center. And that starts with having the right leaders in these countries, and then having really collaboration at what we call the global executive level, because at the global executive, Ritu, is when we make all our decisions and everyone is heard. And that's when we make sure that if we decide on something, it's going to work for the entire world, or at least we have to maybe change some things to make it work in certain cultures. But it comes down to our values and making sure that, and collaboration is part of our values, and that really drives who we are. And the example, and he might be on this, but Rajiv Memani, who's our leader in India, who you know as well, he's a good friend of mine, and he always reminds me at the global board that whenever we make a decision, it has to fit on the ground in the different cultures. And so people like Rajiv, people like Jack Chan from China, they're all part of our, and they ensure that that we have that in place. But like you could imagine, sometimes it's not easy to manage that entire group. We do a pretty good job of it, really based on what I come back to is our values.
That's great. Thank you. So, we are in one of the most unprecedented periods in history. And I think, I would love to get to the other side and look back and say, what was life like in 2020 or 2021? But I want to pose two words that have sort of become part of our discourse today, pivot and resilience. So talk to me a little bit about, what are the pivots that EY is making now or thinking about making? And then how do you ensure that your organization is resilient to everything that's going on around us?
Yeah, so that's so I the way I look at it, Ritu, is I go back to our strategy. We have a strategy that we developed about a year ago or 18 months ago, just as I came into the role. We call it Next Wave, and a lot of the premise around Next Wave, it builds around first of all our purpose, and that's building a better working world. We really believe in our purpose. And then we have an ambition. An ambition is really to be the most trusted, distinctive professional services firm in the world with a long-term value outlook. And so if you think about those words, trusted and distinctiveness, that's what really drives us. That's who we are. Now, in terms of the environment today and pivot, most of our strategy is around becoming more digital, investing more in technology, and that's across all the different service lines. certainly around tax. So tax today on a global basis, if you think about what we do in tax, right? We usually capture data, use the data to then report to governments. And that in and of itself, really, as we move along and as we want to be more efficient, more accurate, will require more and more investment in technology. So we've developed our global tax platform, which is what we use with all clients around tax. And that's all different types of tax that we incorporate into the platform. The clients have a portal on how it works. And that is incredibly important. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars investing in it, but it's an example of pivoting away from really just people to technology and people. That started before the pandemic. The pandemic has just made that even more important. This is true in audit as well. In audit, we have a global audit platform called Canvas. We have adjuncts to that, Helix and Atlas, which will allow us to do more data analytics, which will allow us to do machine learning in terms of our audit, and eventually artificial intelligence. But everything around Next Wave in our strategy is around technology and driving technology. So that's the pivot for us. The resiliency comes around really one of the pillars of long-term value, and that's other companies would call it customers, we call it clients. When COVID first hit, the first message I sent out it was really to all our partners and all our people that there were two most important things, and that's taking care of our people and taking care of our clients. And if we did those, we'd be fine getting through the pandemic. And that's the part that has made us resilient in terms of making sure that we're still serving our clients and making sure that we're protecting jobs and taking care of our people. And that has resulted in for us, a lower growth year than last year, but considering the pandemic, a very good growth year. We're going to announce in a couple of days that we've had growth, just between 4 and 5%. I won't give the exact number, but between 4 and 5% during our fiscal year 20, which ended June 30th. So considering what we've gone through in the pandemic, we view that very, 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 very good. We were more on a trajectory of growing 9% or so, but that has obviously leveled off. But unlike some of our competitors, during the pandemic months, we didn't shrink much. We stayed pretty much flat. And that really goes to the resiliency of our business.
Yeah, that's great news on the growth numbers, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So let me go back to globalization for a minute. We hear a lot in the news these days about globalization being on the decline. There are so many political tensions and other kinds of things happening all over the world. And I'm curious to hear, as a global firm, what's your perspective on this predicted demise of globalization?
Well, I don't agree with the demise of globalization, as you hinted at. I actually think, as I mentioned in my introductory comments, that globalization is here to stay. And it's here to stay because the market is global. Technology has made the market global before the pandemic, and now it's even emphasized that. Now, we do have situations that's making it more difficult. The relationship between the US and China, Europe and China, as well as other countries in China, has made things much more difficult from a political standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. And it's something that we're working through. We're working through with our clients, and that's both our non-Chinese clients and our Chinese clients, because they're global, just like everyone else. And we, I made a statement to our people that we have to be above any of the political chatter that we hear out there. Now, sometimes, and I do believe that the tension's only going to get worse in the near term than get better. Yeah. But in the longer term, I think we'll be fine, because I think people will come to the realization of what's important. But between now and then, we are advising companies to make sure that they're looking, obviously, at their supply chains, diversifying their supply chains. That's something that they've been doing. The pandemic has heightened that as well. To make sure that they look at contingency plans if things were to change. So these are some of the issues, Ritu, that you're dealing with, that we're all dealing with. But I think it's important that we stay focused, that globalization is here to stay, that things aren't going to just shut down, no matter what figures say what they're saying, because the companies are out in front of this, and they will find ways to continue globally.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm delighted to hear you say that globalization is here to stay, right? They taught us in Economics 101 that there are gains from trade, and we hope to continue to see those. So my last question, Carmine, before I turn it over to the students. So last year, the Business Roundtable, of which you're a member, attracted a lot of attention when it redefined the purpose of the corporation to promote an economy that serves all Americans. And as a signatory to this statement, what are your thoughts on what's the significance of this change? What's the headline message that all U.S. corporations should be thinking about?
Yeah, so I was part of that, and I did sign with the rest of the BRT. And the way I look at it, Ritu, is if you think about everything that corporations did back in the 50s and 60s, and you look at, not only did they provide people with a job, they provided people with a livable wage, they provided a lot of help in the communities, they provided obviously benefits. They provided a lot more than just pure profit, bottom line profit, shareholder return. And if you go through history, that was the 50s and 60s, maybe some of the 70s. Then the 80s came, and then it became all around efficiencies. There were corporate raiders out there that were really making it very difficult for corporations that were doing more, except for focus on bottom line profit. And then I would say even short-term bottom line profit. We all feel that we need to get back to some of the things that corporations did back 50 years ago, in terms of really helping people, making sure that corporations are helping some of the societal issues we have today. So one of the biggest ones that I talk about is income inequality, and that is an issue, and that's an issue around the world. It's an issue that's been exacerbated by the pandemic, because the pandemic has hit poorer areas more, and it's something that companies have to do something about. And one of the controversial topics out there is the minimum wage, and I'm a true believer that the minimum wage needs to be increased. Now, people will argue there's different places in the country and so forth that you could, but we talk about livable wage, and I think it's important that employees out there are making a livable wage, and I hear this all the time from fellow CEOs. So those are some of the things that we're working on. But if I can really, that statement was made by the BRT a year ago, and then it's left a lot to interpretation. What does that mean? Who's doing what? One of the things that I would encourage all the students to take a look at, if you go on the World Economic Forum website, and in particular the International Business Council, the World Economic Forum, we, as well as the other big four, have been working with a team from Bank of America and with Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, to come up to what we believe are metrics that would be disclosed by all these companies. And by having these companies disclose these metrics around the different areas, people, planet, prosperity, and governance, it will help drive forward what we mean by a definition of a corporation beyond just for shareholder profit. And if you take a look at these and study them, this is a great thing for the students to learn, because this will be something that's gaining momentum with CEOs. Most companies are going to try to disclose more of. And even we at EY, we're a private company, we're a partnership, but we're going to try to disclose a lot of these metrics for us on a global basis as well. So I encourage all students to take a look.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, we've been trying to talk up ESG metrics as well to just point out that that's a different way to think about companies. And I think this notion of reestablishing the social contract with employees is such a critical one. So thank you for leading that effort. All right, I think we may be running out of time. So before Rebecca pings me, I will hand it over to Rebecca for student questions.
Great. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Carmine. We do have questions that students have submitted during registration. And I will call on each student by name and ask them to introduce themselves, and then ask them to also indicate their program and class year to ask their questions directly. So our first student is Sarah Heckelman.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, Mr. Sibio. My name is Sarah Heckelman, and I am a senior at the Smith School pursuing a double major in marketing and supply chain management with a concentration in strategic design and innovation, as well as a minor in Hebrew studies. I'm currently a study abroad ambassador with the Center for Global Business, and I just completed a procurement internship at the Estee Lauder companies.
I told you we have overachievers.
I think you should join EY and replace me immediately.
Yeah. It is truly an honor to be speaking with you today and to have the opportunity to ask you a question. So thank you. So my question is, how has your fiscal year 21 structure and what has remained the same?
Yeah, you cut out a little bit. I think you asked, at least for me, I think you asked fiscal year 21, has it changed or remained the same? Is that in terms of our plans? Is that the question?
As a result of COVID, what has stayed the same
Right.
and what has changed?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, as a result of COVID, obviously we would have been planning to actually grow 9-10%. Now we're planning to grow 4 or 5 because we do believe the first 6 months of the year for us, and that's July 1 to December, because of COVID and the situation we're in and the fact that we're virtual. And while companies are spending, they're not spending as much because of the general economy. We did lower our financial plan for 21, but we do expect a hockey stick, and in terms of the latter part of 21, which for us would be the first and second quarters of 21, in particular the second quarter. The COVID's been interesting with us. I think I told Rita this story. We kept saying, oh, okay, it's just 2-week lockdown. No, it's a month lockdown. No, it's 2 months. No, it's 4 months. And here we are. It's probably going to end up being about a year of impact. Once we get through it. So it has changed. Our financial plans have changed, but we're very optimistic in terms of a rebound during the calendar year of 21.
Thank you for that. Our next student is Virginia Perry.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for taking time to speak with us today. I'm Virginia Peary. I'm a second year in the full-time MBA program, and I also have the privilege of serving as the president of the MBA Association for this school year. My question for you is, what efforts is EY taking in order to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are impacted so greatly by COVID, and to help revive the economy? And how do you think that we as management students can create an impact and help support that same impact EY is looking to have?
Thanks. That is a great question. And some people think at EY we only deal with the Fortune 500 companies, but we're actually pretty local in areas all over the world, and we do deal with medium-sized businesses for sure, and even some smaller-sized businesses that we think are going to grow. So we've done a lot in terms of helping support those businesses in terms of getting them through COVID. And this is everything from helping them with financial analysis to helping them with their supply chains and so forth. And we've done some of that at very reduced rates. And for some, we've actually done it pro bono. So I would say our people around the world have helped local businesses in their local towns with whatever skill sets they have. And, with 300,000 people, that creates a great platform to help these businesses. our signature event around more startup businesses in particular is our Entrepreneur of the Year that we run globally around the world. And these are startup businesses for the most part, you know, where people are just getting started. Some are small, and we've done everything from, you know, helping them with technology, helping them from a management standpoint, helping them from a liquidity standpoint during this time period. So we've done a lot, but I do feel bad for small businesses. It is tough sledding, in particular businesses service industry, which is one that we have to get back to some kind of normalcy. Otherwise, that's going to be a problem going forward.
Thank you. Our third question comes from a student, Dishant Hukumatani. He's a specialty master's student of quantitative finance, and he was unable to join us today. So I will ask his question on his behalf. His question is, how is EY supporting people of minority backgrounds and tackling racial inequality?
Rebecca, that's a great question. We've been very involved on this topic. We started well, first of all, let me just talk about D&I for EY on an overall basis. Not only is it part of what we do, it's part of how all our leaders are evaluated. We have 10 metrics that we evaluate all our leaders. Inclusiveness and diversity is one of them. And so we're very serious about the topic. We have a succession planning process with top 500 roles in EY. Every one of those slates has to have a diverse slate from a gender perspective, from a geographical and ethnic background perspective. So we were ahead on this topic to start with. But then when it comes to some of the racial tensions that have occurred, not only in the US, but around the world, we felt like we had to do more. So we've actually changed our values. We've put the word inclusiveness directly into our values. Before it was more implicit. We've all made statements. We've also put some money behind some of the historically Black colleges in terms of some of the programs that are coming out of. And we're also very involved with creating jobs and upskilling our people so they can work at a place like EY. All that being said, we continue to listen to our Black partners around the world in terms of, you know, what we need to do more of. And a lot of it is around certainly promotions and equality within EY, but then also helping, you know, from that standpoint at EY, we have a supply issue. We don't have enough people with the backgrounds that we need in the different areas that we employ people in, whether that's being a CPA or being a lawyer in tax or having a lot of technology skill sets. So everything that we're doing around the world is going to revolve around us creating more supply of diverse people so we can hire them. So that's a major focus for us, you know, as we go forward.
And I'm sure that we have here at the Smith School some candidates to help you to meet your goals as well.
Thank you,
Rebecca. Absolutely.
Putting a plug for our students. I'll move on to some other student questions. Our fourth question comes from Dia Data. Please, Dia.
Hi, Mr. Sibio. My name is Dia Data. Thank you so much for taking time out today to answer our questions. I'm a first-year specialty master's student in business analytics at the Smith School, and I'm brand new to the business world since I did my undergrad in biological engineering, which is why my question is, what specific skills, both hard and soft, would make an EY applicant stand out to you?
Well, I think some of your focus, Dia, in terms of what you're majoring in already makes you stand out. We're hiring more and more people with analytics background, analytics major. So that right off the bat, I think is excellent and is a standout. And that would be obviously more of a hard skill. But on the soft skill side, and this is something that when you interview at EY in consulting, you'll go through a case study. And for many candidates, that really makes a difference in terms of how you interact in the case study. And from a cultural experience at EY, we want to see people that are people who team, who collaborate, who are energetic, enthusiastic. That's a little bit about who we are. And that differentiates candidates that, that want to more work by themselves. And I always tell people, if you really want to just work by yourself somewhere, that's probably not the culture at EY. You're probably not going to be happy here.
So Carmine, if I may follow up, when was the last time you participated in an entry-level hiring interview? Just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
No. Well, it's fun. So while maybe I haven't participated directly in an interview, what I have done though is I talk to kids all the time because I do get referrals.
Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking, I have that wants to send me emails. So I do this all the time. Our recruiters hate this because then I send them the resume and I say, hey, I know this student, he or she they're really great people and all that. And if our recruiters could come through the screen now and yell at me, they would. But it is, so I love talking to them because it gives me a lot of insight in terms of what they're thinking as well, just like today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm just thinking if I was an interviewee and the chairman of the company walked in, boy, that would be a moment to remember for the rest of my career. All right, Rebecca, we have time
I'm probably a lot easier than some of our interviewers.
That's right. Rebecca, one more question.
All right.
Maybe two more if you like. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So our next question comes from Tawanta Hassan.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. DeSabio. And thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon with us. My name is Tawanta Hassan, and I'm an Executive MBA Cohort 21 candidate. My question for you today is, how can organizations begin to align thought and leadership models?
Explain more what you mean by thought and leadership models.
So in my thinking, thought leadership is really against the norm. We come in with very thoughtful, hands-on, innovative thinking. And then there's the innovative leadership where you're really looking for differences and changes in how you are providing or producing a product, providing services. And so how do you align that for leaders of tomorrow? Both of those models, which people have kind of siloed, but I think they are can be aligned.
They can, and this is an excellent question, really an excellent question. So, and I'll start by just talking about our clients. So our clients over the last few years, especially our larger clients, have had a tough time being innovative at the same time as running their company. And it's hard to be innovative in large companies. And so it's not easy, to your point. What we have done, and we've actually taken this from a professor, Jeffrey Moore, from Stanford University. Sorry, it's not from Maryland, Ritu, but
okay.
But he wrote a book around zones to win, and he really describes in that book a little bit about how to do this, how to create innovation within a larger company where innovation doesn't get stifled, and what you do is at points in time you isolate particular ideas into a zone. At EY, we're doing this. We call it our transformation zone. And so an idea around a new solution for the insurance industry around how they, how they use technology in terms of claims. This is actually a real example. And we developed this whole idea that's really for the entire industry in insurance. And we actually took that idea and put it into a separate area at EY called the transformation zone, so we could continue to develop it without it getting stifled by the rest of EY, the rest of the metrics around EY, the rest of the pressures around EY. And that's important. So there is a way to marry those two thoughts, thought and innovation. But it does take some structural change to the organization, and it does take discipline from the senior leaders.
So I do have one final question. Ritu, if I can sneak it in.
Yep.
And this question comes from Melanie Rojas. Melanie, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. All right. Hello, Mr. DeCibio. It's so nice to
Hi,
meet
Melanie.
you. And thank you for your time. So my name is Melanie Rojas. I am a marketing major here at the Smith School, as well as a marketing and events intern for our Office of Career Services. And my question for you is, what is the next step in your career path? Can you share a little bit about what's next for you?
Uh-oh.
That's a question. So so I'll be in my role for the next 2.5 years or so. We actually have a mandatory retirement age at EY of 60. So you could guess at my age then. And beyond that, I haven't given a lot of thought in terms of what I want to do, but I am very interested in obviously continuing to work and also working with our clients. I obviously will have chances to what I want to do. I'm probably more interested in some of startup is something that I have, and I think I could add value. So I'll probably do a little bit of that as some corporate boards, but that's still a long way. So I'm not really thinking about it much. But there's, we have many partners at EY because of the early retirement age. They go on to many different things. Some get into politics. Next EY partner. But so I'm not sure I'm ready for that, but maybe. Thanks for the question.
Okay, Ritu, that is it for questions. I promise I'll turn it back over to you.
Here. Oh.
Yeah, you did, Carmine, but I see that you're back. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Carmine, for your patience with all of the questions. And I just wanted to say before I forget that anytime you're looking to join the professorial ranks, we always have a place for you at the University of Maryland. Okay, and I know our finance faculty would welcome you. So this has been great. I so very much appreciate your taking the time, and had this not been 2020, we would have looked forward to hosting you within the halls of Van Munching and showing off and our space just a little bit. And you would have had a chance to meet with all of my colleagues, but perhaps we'll do that another year. I hope you got something in the mail from us, Carmine. And if you did, it would be great if we could open it now. Okay.
I want to make sure I do this in the right order. So the little one first. Is that what you do?
Oh, wait. It's entirely your choice. Yeah.
Oh, I was told I had to open the little one first. So thank you so much. I did get it in the mail. I did not open it beforehand, so I don't know what it is. And I was told to bring my scissors, so I have my scissors. This is very well packaged.
Well, from Melbourne to New Jersey, we wanted to make sure that there were no slips in the supply chain along the way.
It might be so well packaged, it's going to take me a while to open, even with scissors. But well, all right. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Oh my God! And this is beautiful. Oh, this is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, Kimberly, for that wonderful job with the packing. I think it got there in one piece. I think I see.
That is gorgeous. Thank you.
It looks like a crystal. It looks like a crystal terrapin.
Yes, it's a crystal terrapin. Can you guys see it? Hold on. I got it.
Yeah.
There we go. Hold on.
There we go. Perfect.
It's beautiful.
So
Thank
that's
you
just
so
a little
much.
gesture.
Right.
It's the terrapin is the University of Maryland mascot, in case your team had not briefed you. And ours is called Testudo.
That I even know without the debriefing.
Good.
I'm gonna have to leave it on my desk. I think Mark and Ellen will appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay, now we have more goodies. Wow, you guys.
We have more goodies there. That's great. That looks like a Smith School water bottle. Great. I love that.
That's
Black
fantastic.
and red.
My family says I need to drink more water. Oh,
There
look
you
at
go.
this. This is.
Okay. So
Can you see
notice
this?
we have the EY colors as well.
I know, it's fabulous. Thank you so much. That's
Great.
that's really cool. Well, I think there's still more in here.
And it's a little Smith School notebook.
Notebook, so I could take notes. I think that, wow, thank you so much. This is way too much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dean Agarwal. It's great spending some time with you all. I wish I could do this live in person. I do miss the in-person interaction, and hopefully we can do that in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, Carmine. And I want to say thank you on behalf of all my colleagues, all of the faculty, staff, and students of the Smith School and the University of Maryland. This has just been incredible. So now I'm going to hand it back to Rebecca to take us forward to the next set of proceedings. Thank you again, Carmine.
Thank you.
Great. I would also like to offer another thank you on behalf of the Smith School to you, Carmine, and to you, Ritu, for sharing your insights and your perspectives today. I know that you cannot hear the applause of the audience, but I know I speak for everyone on the call today when I say that we have very much enjoyed this hour with you and have learned a great deal from your comments. So if you, the audience, enjoyed this content, please be sure to check out the rest of the Distinguished Speaker Series and other events at the Smith School this semester. You can access the entire fall calendar that is chock full of really great events on the school's website. And now I will turn it over to Mark to take us into the second half of today's event.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Carmine. And good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Mark Ravinowitz, and I am a partner in EY's audit practice in the Tysons, Virginia office. I graduated from the Smith School in 2005 with a major in accounting, and I am a huge fan. I was so excited and proud that EY's CEO, Carmine Sibio, would be featured in the CEO at Smith Speaker Series, and he did not disappoint. Carmine hit on a lot of topics today, from how he is leading our firm in a global pandemic to the ever-changing global business world, and the many ways we are helping our clients to build a better working world. I'm now going to moderate a panel with a great group of EY professionals who will share their experiences about what it's like to work at EY and talk more specifically about how we are helping to shape the future for our clients now, next, and beyond. Our goal for this hour, named A Day in the Life of an EY Professional, is for you to learn more about our service lines, our culture, and what a career at EY looks like. But before I start the panel, I want to introduce you to Ellen Polanski. Ellen is a senior leader in our financial services group and a managing director and global coordinating partner out of our New York office. Ellen is also a Smith alum, and you may recognize her as she's a guest lecturer here at Smith. And she's also on the board of the Center for Global Business at Smith. Ellen, thanks for being here today, and of course for your leadership in helping to bring Carmine to the Smith School. Now, I know your story is a bit different from our panelists we're about to hear from, so I was hoping you could share a bit about your background and some perspectives about what makes EY such a great place to work.
Thanks, Mark. And I am always excited when I could talk to the students from Smith and the University of Maryland. So thank you for that introduction. And I really hope you all enjoyed hearing from Carmine. He's one of the all-time greatest CEOs that I've ever worked with. And as Mark mentioned, my career's didn't start at EY. And so I've worked for a number of CEOs, and I can honestly say that working at EY and working with Carmine, and I have worked directly for Carmine for the first at least 10 years of my career, has just made it a wonderful experience. As Mark mentioned, I'm a coordinating partner. I'm a managing director. I'm also the head of our FinTech advisory practice in our financial services office. That's a mouthful. And I didn't have a direct line into EY. I started as an investment banker back in 1987, so I'm really going to date myself. And I spent a number of years in the investment banking world. And that was sort of the first trajectory that people had when they came out of the business school back then. I also then worked at a IT advisory firm, and I became a CIO advisor. And I also started my own little company on the side that supports a number of charities. And so at EY, I'm allowed to do all of these things, which has been really great. So, I've been at EY for almost 16 years. And I cannot today tell you that I would imagine working anywhere else because one, and I'll actually say for four reasons. One is the culture. When you look at the different companies that you could work for me, the culture was really probably the most important thing. And our culture is a people first culture, and we have such collaboration amongst our teams because everybody that we do work with, we have to work on teams. And so we have to collaborate. And it's one of learning, it's pushing ourselves to be the best and knowing that we all strive for excellence. And the last part of that is we get to be entrepreneurial. So if we have an idea, if we think something would work better, we can bring it to the table. It may not always be accepted, it may not always work, but the ideas are always, we're always generating ideas, which is terrific. The second reason I'm at EY is our people, our teams, and our clients. I get to lead a lot of the work that we do. So I get to work with a number of the folks that you'll see here today, and I get to work with very different teams. And so I'm the person who actually goes in and actually works with the CEOs, I work with the boards, I work with C-suite executives, and I hear their problems on a day-to-day basis. And I'm the one who has to come back with our teams and help try to solve those problems. I don't have the answers, my teams have the answers, and we get together and we collaborate to bring the best of that to the market and to our clients. And I've gotten to work on some of the most complex market-changing projects. Not two have ever been the same. And I get to meet with some of the most interesting industry leading clients that you could come across, and some of the most intelligent and thought-provoking people at EY. And I always say I'm usually the least intelligent person in the room. So when I get together with my teams, it's amazing what we generate in terms of the thought-provoking ideas and the solutions that we come up with. The third reason I'm at EY is learning. We have changed from, and you've heard Carmine say this, from one of being a big four accounting firm to one of the world's leading consulting and technology advisory firms. And we've invested over $1 billion in our technology practices to be a leading provider of technology and business advice. And to me, that has been groundbreaking and a complete differentiator. And then lastly, what I like to tell people is that at EY, I know that I have a purpose. Each and every day that I go to work, my purpose is to help others succeed, whether it be a CEO, a client, or a colleague. And, I get up in the morning and I just really love what I do. And then I can tell you that when Mark had mentioned that we were ranked the #1 firm being most attractive for students coming out of college, I can tell you that we are one of the best institutions to start your career. I get to teach, I get to mentor, and I get to coach so many of the students that come into EY and our new colleagues. And it's amazing to watch their careers blossom. And so what I can promise you is that a career at EY will never be boring. You'll get to work with great people, and you'll get to see consistently really neat projects to work on. And so at the end of this, as you go through the panel, I'm going to stay on for the rest of the panel. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them along with Mark and the rest of the panel. Back to you, Mark.
All right, thank you, Ellen. And, as I was thinking about it, many of the students here, their parents probably grew up hearing about EY as a Big Four accounting and tax firm. Maybe at that time it was Big Five or Big Eight. And so while we do still recruit significantly for our accounting and tax positions, we do view ourselves as a global professional services firm, helping our clients solve their most complex problems. And we do that across 4 key service lines: audit, tax, consulting, and strategy and transactions. So now we'll move on to the panel discussion and take a few moments for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. And then I'll kick off the conversation asking questions of the panel. And then we'll leave time at the end to give you an opportunity to ask some questions to help you learn more about EY and our opportunities. So you can send questions to me via the Q&A function, and I'll be keeping track of those, and we'll do our best to get those questions answered during this session. And if not, I will also give you some ways you can connect with us at the end of this as well. So let's go ahead and start with introductions. Again, these are all Smith alums, so very proud to say that. And Mike, we'll start with you. We're looking for name, title, service line, office, and a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Mark, and good afternoon. My name is Mike Zahn. I'm an Assurance Senior Manager in our Tyson's office. I work primarily in our government and public sector practice. I started my career as an intern with EY in the summer of 2007, joined shortly thereafter as a full-time employee in 2008, and have been with the firm ever since. Since joining the firm, I've worked in a number of different industries, healthcare, private equity, manufacturing, federal practice, you name it. As part of the audit practice, what we do is provide assurance over a company's financial statements, their balance sheet, the income statement, statement of cash flows, et cetera. What is particularly unique in what I do in serving the government and public sector is that, me personally and our, the tax dollars that we're paying are the benefit, doing the benefit of those audit roles. We see the benefit of making sure the government is using those tax dollars appropriately. Whereas if you're a public company, you're doing on behalf of banks or other stockholders or shareholders. So unique about the government practice, but I think audit as a whole, federal and commercial are very similar.
Great, thanks. Sam, how about you?
Yep, thanks, Mark. So my name is Sam Chowdhury. I'm a senior manager as well in our consulting practice in Tyson's, also primarily serving government public sector clients. So unlike Mike, I've not been with the firm for my entire career. I actually started at another Big Four and interned there while at the University of Maryland. Worked there for about 5 years, and then worked out at a couple other consulting and accounting firms prior to joining EY about 4 years ago. And so, a little bit about the consulting practice and what I do, and how I got here. I've worked in many different capacities. I've worked in data analytics. I've worked in internal audit. I've worked on financial statement audits, and currently I support a technology risk practice within our greater consulting service line. And it's a fairly unique practice in that we work on audits as well. We do the IT audit portions of financial statement audits, but a lot of our people, and it really depends on the day and what project you're on, are working on traditional consulting engagements in IT risk, cyber, technology implementations, and so forth. So it's really exciting. I think we'll get into it later, but just layering on the government public sector aspect of it, adds complexity in terms of the scale of our clients. When you think about the size of the different services in the defense sector, like the Navy or the Air Force or Department of Health and Human Services or the Social Security Administration, they're the immense organizations with billion-dollar budgets, and it's very exciting work. So, and I just also want to say thank you all. I'm really happy to be here talking with everybody.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharon Anuma, and I am a manager in our tax practice in Tyson's. And just like Mike said, I started my career as an intern at EY. I started as an intern in 2011. I did an internship called a launch internship, and then subsequently I went on to do a tax internship, and then the subsequent year I started full-time in the tax service line. And just a little bit about tax at EY and what I do. I help companies with their compliance, global compliance and reporting, to helping them comply with tax laws and regulations, and also helping companies with tax planning and just helping them with complex tax transactions. As you can imagine, in this COVID time, a lot of companies struggling with cash and just their dollars, just helping them figure out what tax planning strategies they can employ. And with the CARES Act that just got passed, helping companies also plan around that and just maximize their dollars, what I currently do. Now I'll pass it off to Shanice.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shanice James. Similar to everyone else, I started off at EY as an intern. I did the same intern program as Sharon. I was a launch intern for 1 year, and then the next year I came back and I did an assurance internship. I then started with the firm. I stayed for 2 years. I left for 2 years, and I am back for going on 2 years. Primarily, not primarily, I've always worked on DoD engagements. So that's the Department of Defense. In our government practice, I have worked on Air Force, CMS, which is Medicare and Medicaid, and I currently work on the Navy. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Claudia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Garcia Valle. I'm a senior at Smith School. I'm an accounting major. I recently interned at EY. I was working in the assurance practice in the government public sector. To be honest, it was the most amazing experience. I learned a lot during my internship. I know all my colleagues have so many experience, but I'm looking forward to start at the company next year.
Thanks, Claudia. So we've got a really great group here. I think you can see we have a lot of folks serving our government public sector practice, given we're pretty local to this DC area. But as Ellen mentioned, she's the leader in the financial services space out of the New York office. And Mike mentioned we do a lot of other industries as well that we've been working in. I know we do a lot in the biotechnology space. It's actually pretty neat. One of my audit clients is a company in Gaithersburg, Maryland, that is working on a COVID vaccine. So it's pretty exciting to see them in the news. And so as you think about it, we have audit, tax, consulting here represented on the panel, many different industries served. And so we'll start with Shanice. I know your story is a little different because you were at EY, left, and then came back. But ultimately, why did you choose EY? Why don't we say for the second time? And what do you like most about the EY culture?
So I chose EY twice, and the reason why I chose EY twice is because of the culture. And it's similar to what Carmine spoke about earlier. When I was leaving the firm the first time, people told me, you're making a mistake, but we're going to let you go. You're going to come back anyways. I was told, you have 1 year. We'll know you'll be back. And within 1 year, I did want to come back to EY, but I mainly chose EY the first time and the second time because of the culture and because of the people. When I tell you that there's no place like EY, there's no place like EY. The way that my colleagues and my peers care about me, and not just on a professional level, they also care about me personally, whether or not I'm making my personal goals, if I'm making my professional goals. They've always taken the time to help me grow, and I didn't experience that outside of the firm, and I missed it. It was something that I didn't realize that I needed, and that's why I chose EY.
Thanks, Shanice. And Claudia, I know you just completed the internship this past summer and have accepted a full-time offer with us. Tell us your story about why you chose EY. And I know you only got to spend a few weeks with us this summer, but what stuck out to you about the EY culture?
Being honest, why I chose EY? Why not to choose EY, right? Being honest, when I started my interview process, the recruiting team was always very attentive with me, and I feel that I was cared for a lot. Before I started my internship, I had the opportunity to be a mentor for a future intern candidate. And then during my internship, I didn't expect it at all that I was going to be a leader during the upskilling week. And I felt very grateful because it was an amazing experience to work with other interns and be able to be a leader for them. And now, after I accepted my full-time offer, the company has given me the opportunities to be a panelist and be honest, I'm very thankful. About the culture, well, the people is amazing. I feel very welcome at the company. Since the start, I feel like the people was great. They were all very attentive with me. If I had any question, they were always asking me. Like they will always respond.
Yeah. Good, good. Well, and Claudia, we'll stay with you. I know this was the first time we've ever had an internship be 100% virtual, just like this is the first time there was a CEO at Smith that was virtual as well. Not our preference, but glad that we could still support and keep the internship. And so what was it like for you as an intern to come in, right? You don't, you sort of got a care package in the mail, right? Like just talk a little bit about going through a virtual internship with us.
It was very different. I was looking forward to be an intern in person. It's very different to be online every day, like in the computer. Like I know, like when if you're in person, you can go out with your colleagues and stuff. But be honest, the company did an amazing job making my internship very engaging. I feel like every day I learned something new, and every day I was able to network with people. Like I know some people would think like, oh, because it was in person, you didn't network with anyone. But be honest, I networked with so many people, and they're always reaching out to me, and the experience was amazing. Like the company did an amazing job.
Good, good. Typically the interns at the end get to go to Orlando, which is always a nice way to send the interns off. So I don't know, it didn't happen this summer, obviously, for very real reasons. But I'm glad that we were able to do the internship. It took a huge commitment, I think, from our leadership. I think a lot of companies said, you know what, we don't have to do the internship. We'll hire folks full time down the road. And I think it was still very important for people to get that experience, kind of see what we do, experience working with teams with us. So I'm glad you were able to do that, Claudia.
Yeah.
And Mark, can I just add, that's just one example. I think throughout my career, and those of us who have been here longer, I think we've seen a number of instances where things that beyond our control pop up, and EY has tools and resources in place to help us navigate through these times. And flipping on a dime to move to a virtual environment, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from our clients where they've been impressed in how seamless we've been able to transition, particularly on the audit side where I work. We're at the client site nearly every day, if not most days, around key deliverables or important phases throughout the year. And all of a sudden not being able to be there, how are we going to do testing, meet with the client, hold virtual walkthrough meetings, understand their business and complete the requirements of an audit. And within a short time frame, we had to shift to 100% virtual. And I think across the board, it's been very successful in all service lines, and our clients have been very pleased and have communicated that to us.
Yeah, Mike, that's a really great point. Because as Carmine mentioned, I mean, we could have lost a lot of work if we didn't pivot appropriately. If our teams couldn't respond and be able to work remotely in this virtual environment. I think the amount of investment that we've made in technology over the last several years, this is really when it paid off. Because I think there's probably a lot of companies who just didn't have the same level of technology to be able to work with their clients in the same manner. And what I tell people, I do a lot of coaching with folks, and the staff and seniors, like the way our structure is usually across the service lines, a lot of the work is done by the staff and the seniors, right? They're the ones interacting with the clients on a daily basis. They're the ones with the great ideas, and ultimately we have supervision and review as it works its way up the chain. But it's really the staff and the seniors who are driving the work. And I just could not be more impressed by how our seniors are leading our teams, how our staff are staying engaged. And so this is a nice segue as we move to Shanice. I mean, we've been doing this for almost 6 months now, working from home. How do you keep the teams engaged, and how do you try to practice really good project management?
So that's a great question, and I feel like this can be translated to, university life as well. One of the things that we had to learn very early on and recognize is that you still have to create work-life balance. And in the beginning, it was difficult because we never had this opportunity where you could literally work for 15 hours in a day and not realize that you didn't get up and all you did was sitting at your computer. So something that my team did very early on that worked really well for us is that we created structure. Our work days are structured. We do not, unless it's really, really necessary, my managers don't encourage me to work extremely crazy hours, and I don't encourage my staff to do the same either. We have pretty much hard start and stop time so that we can get outside and enjoy outdoors or go do something that you really want to do. If you want to just try a new recipe or you want to call your mom for an hour and take a break, we encourage that we're doing that. Some other things that we do, every Tuesday, my team has every morning we have a team meeting, but every Tuesday we make sure that it is on camera so that we can see each other. When we're meeting with each other, just to go over a work paper, or if I'm trying to teach someone something, we turn on our cameras because it makes us feel like we aren't so far apart. We can see each other. And I don't know, maybe there's this one guy on my team, every time we put on videos, he puts on a crazy hat or something. So that's usually a nice surprise for us. We also do virtual events together. So we've had who can come up with the most wackiest outfit. We have had we said that we were going to create a paint night virtually. So you guys have to ask me later how that goes. But we find things to do. We did a step challenge. We have done, what else have we done? Step challenge. Oh, we did trivia games. Anything that you can think of, we try to do and keep it fun. But really, turning on your video and using Teams to its full capacity is really important because you don't feel so far apart from your team members.
Yeah. Thanks, Shanice. It's tough to stay connected, right? Our business is based on relationships, relationships we build on our teams and relationships we build with our clients. And so, it's not, business doesn't just stop, right? Because of the pandemic, it hasn't. And so, we're still doing our best to serve our clients and stay connected with our clients and stay connected with our team. So thanks for sharing that. So Sharon, I know, you're a tax manager. I'm an audit partner. We've worked together for a few years now. We serve one of our biggest aerospace and defense clients together. And so I refer to that. That's an example of where just because I'm in audit and you're in tax, we're still teaming together across service lines to bring the best to our clients. So what's one thing that you're most proud of about working at EY? And then also, what are some of the more challenging aspects of working at EY?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, if I could go on and talk about the things I'm proud of at EY, it'd probably take me a really long time. So I'll narrow it down to the top two. I think the top two things I'm most proud about working at EY are the opportunities and the coaching I get here at EY. And when I say opportunities, just the quality and the depth of the clients that I get to work on multi-million-dollar companies and helping them advise my clients on very complex transactions and actually seeing the benefits go through the bottom line for the companies is very rewarding experience. And I really like getting to do that. And also the coaching I get at EY, I just haven't seen myself grow over the past 7 years at EY and see how far I've come because of the learning and the coaching I get from my team, the managers I work with and the partners I work with. It's been had a very tremendous impact on my career. So I like paying it forward when I get to see staff who just joined EY, helping pass that forward and helping coach them and see how they grow on at EY and grow through their careers. In terms of challenges, right? When there's a ton of opportunities, also comes juggling those opportunities, right? It's always because there's a ton of exciting things you want to do and you want to try, but there's obviously a very limited time during the day. And so sometimes that can be challenging, right? Trying to decide, well, how can I balance my personal and professional life? And I think the great thing is that EY always provides an opportunity for you to be vocal. Our culture thrives in a culture of communication. So whenever I feel like I have a lot on my plate, there's someone I can go to. There's a resource management I can talk to say, hey, I have this many things on my plate. I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I want to pass off something else to someone else, and they can take something off your plate. So that way I'm still able to thrive in my professional and still thrive in my personal life as well.
Great. Mike, you want to go?
Sure. So I'll share a quick story of, something that I'm proud of working at EY. A few years ago, my wife and I were taking a vacation. We were actually in Australia and just chit-chatting with the other individuals on a tour we were with. And I mentioned that I work for EY, and the two ladies that we were speaking to, the reaction, they're like, "Oh, you work for EY," immediately recognized the brand. Carmine hit on it at the noon chat, and a few others have mentioned just the global reach of the firm and the prestige that it holds around the world. Felt very proud moments to say I work for EY, and talking to people on the other side of the world immediately recognize the company and the work that we offer as a professional services firm. And I still feel that way today, as we accomplish helping our clients, feeling that that sense of pride. In terms of a challenging aspect, as Ellen and Mark and Carmine said, we are a professional services firm. We build relationships. Our clients reach out to us when they have questions. It's not, we contract with you to perform an audit. That's the only thing that we need your help with. They have business challenges and questions that come up, whether it's from current events or just things that are happening with their specific business. Sometimes they reach out and you get a lot of those questions at the same time, and it can seem overwhelming. But I think what makes the firm great and makes EY great is there's plenty of resources, and as Sharon said, people that you can reach out to and talk with. We work in large teams. We work within a large practice, within a large firm. Sometimes the solution isn't the person I'm sitting next to or someone on my team, but maybe it's someone in FSO, or maybe it's someone in a different service line who can help us track down that answer. It's not only on us to find the solution and provide that solution to our client. So there's plenty of support, when those questions come, and if we don't know the answer, resources to reach out to.
Sam, how about you? How about you weigh in?
Yep, happy to. So, I wanted to talk maybe more about recent events and just how I'm proud of the firm and how they've dealt with it. I'm sure many of you have read in the news in terms of companies and how they're dealing with the pandemic and how they're dealing with their workforce and their employees and things of that nature. Being at EY, it's been amazing, I think. I have a couple small children, so I think everybody's got their different challenges during this pandemic. I think for us with small children, I have elementary school age kids and a wife that actually runs a business. It's incredibly difficult. And, I can't be online during normal work hours always. I've got to start learning how to homeschool my kids, right? And my wife and I are juggling our calls and our meetings and things like that constantly. And then there are other challenges, right? There are people that have to take care of family, elderly individuals and their families. There are people that are living completely alone in isolation, and some of the mental stresses that come along with that, need to be addressed as well. But what our firm has done, from all of our leaders like Mark and Ellen and Carmine, all the way down to our new campus hires, and working together, making sure everybody's okay, asking those questions, are you okay? Really caring for each other. I'm just really proud of how the firm's responded to this. It's just been amazing. And on top of that, the firm's put together a lot of resources for all of us, whether it is us dealing with small children, or it is those of us that may have elderly individuals in our family that need help and care that is more difficult to provide during these times, or just access to mental health professionals. That the firm has provided all of that as much as they possibly can. You know, recognizing the fact that our time is how we earn revenue. You know, we're not putting a tangible product out there. We're actually spending time solving problems with our clients, and if we're not billing that time, then we're not earning revenue. So we still have to work. But the flexibility that the firm has afforded us and the resources they've given us to help with that during a time of crisis like this has been incredible. And so a challenge, you know, I think it's kind of a funny challenge for me in particular. I'll give a little bit of background. I think I mentioned earlier, I've worked in a lot of different roles, I guess, from data analytics to financial audit to, you know, more traditional consulting roles like business process reengineering or you know, cost reduction engagements and things like that. And I'm always looking at like, what's the new cool thing to do? And we are doing all those new cool things constantly at this firm, right? But you can't always switch projects the minute you find something cooler. You gotta complete what you're doing. You know, maybe retrain, you know, enhance your skills and slowly move from project to project and role to role. And I think sometimes it's hard to stay focused. You talk to somebody at a happy hour or a lunch and you say, hey, that project seems so cool. I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore, and I want to do that other one. But so it's kind of an interesting challenge to have in terms of staying focused and really realizing that the stuff that we do day to day, whether you're in financial services or you're in some consumer products sector, or specifically for us, a lot of us in government public sector, we are doing things that really have a huge impact on our clients and really people, especially in government public sector. I think, you know, I've worked on projects where we're helping people stay in their homes, you know, during economic downturns, you know, refinance their mortgages through government programs and things like that. And so when you do see these other cool projects, you got to remember and remind yourself why you're on the project you're on or the engagement you're on and who's benefiting from that.
Great. Thank you, Sam. And to the audience, continue to send in your questions. I think we've got one more question for the panel, and then I'll start pulling in questions from the audience. But you know, just want to echo, I think, a lot of what this group has said already. I mean, the experiences and opportunities you get, right? Like why start a career here? It's probably the coaching and the neat opportunities right out of you know, your undergrad or MBA program. I remember fresh out of college, here I was, probably not even close to 25 yet, and I was going to meet with the controller of a public company and the treasurer of a public company to sort of learn about what they do. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, wow, I don't know how I would have ever crossed paths with those individuals, you know, at many other firms at such an early stage of my career. And then as you advance through your career, I mean, you've got these opportunities all the way through, right? But coaching and mentoring, teaching, leading, right? Learning how to lead, you know, that doesn't come naturally. You got to learn it, right? There's skills you can practice. You know, and so I think about just some of the neat things I've done in my career. I worked on a $9 billion acquisition of another company and a $7 billion divestiture of a company, right? And my clients come to me and say, how do I account for these? How do I account for such an acquisition, right? Or how do I comply with SEC regulations if I want to sell this company? What are all the things I need to be thinking about? And some of it is definitely accounting focused, but a lot of it is also just business and operational. You know, if something goes wrong, right, it's, hey guys, you know, what are some lessons learned here? How do you think about this differently the next time you're trying to be strategic with an acquisition or a divestiture? So again, ask your questions. We've got a great group here, and Ellen as well. I've got a few in the queue. I know I'll be asking the panel, but we do have time for a few others. I did want to. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Before we move off that question, I mean, a few of us, you know, we've been in the same service line. I know a lot of individuals coming out school may not know what they want to do, if it's audit or consulting or tax. I think the great thing about EY is you get exposure learning about a business and industry. And, if after a few years you decide audit's, not your ideal career path, we work with a number of individuals who have pivoted, to use Carmine's word, within the firm and still have, had very successful careers, and being able to leverage that knowledge and experience and to still grow within the firm. I think, as you led with the intro, we're not only just an accounting and tax firm. The breadth of services that we offer, and a lot of that, could stem from a start in assurance, or a start in tax, or start in consulting, and branch off to many different places still within the firm.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. So I think I'm going to ask the next question of Sam, Mike, and Sharon. And you might have touched on some of this already. So if you have, I'll sort of add a second question in there, right? But what keeps you at EY? And if you think you've sort of hit on a lot of those points, why don't you share, what's one of the coolest things you've got to experience, right, working at EY? It can be personal or professional, but what's something that really sticks out to you as you think about your career here so far?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead. Thanks, Mike, or Mark, sorry. I'll start with the first part, and there's a little bit of overlap. And I think it comes down to a lot of what Carmine and Mark and Ellen mentioned right at the beginning and others on the panel, is people and culture. And that's what really keeps me here. I'll give a quick background, and I think I mentioned I worked for 3 other companies, including another Big Four that I interned at while I was at Maryland, and then for 5 years after. And when I joined EY 4 years ago, it was because of my first supervisor at that Big Four. When I was an intern, she was a senior manager at EY. I ran into her 10 years later and said, "Hey, I'm actually looking to move." I was transitioning from financial services into government and public sector type work, and she was a senior manager in the government practice at EY, and she's now a partner. And I decided to join. And there are some other colleagues from my old firm that are here as well. And honestly, I didn't expect any different. I expected to come to the same firm, pretty much, with a different name. I was very surprised when the first week here. It's just the atmosphere is totally different, and EY really works. Everybody within the firm really works every day to make sure we maintain our culture and continue to improve our culture, which I think is what the difference is, right? So I'm actually on a committee called the Cultural Enhancement Committee for our East Region Consulting Practice. I was the PMO lead for it for the last year or two. And I would have done that in another firm. I didn't really think about it. But at EY, I joined, and I eventually became a lead of the committee, because it's just, I want to be part of that. I wanted to be part of maintaining that culture and helping to drive that. And so, it's just that atmosphere. If people will say it's like family, it's kind of cheesy, but it really does feel like that. And people really take care of each other here. So that's really what keeps me here. And the second question about, some of the cool things I've seen since I've been here. So I think I don't know if I mentioned before, but I was in financial services, and I was slowly transitioning to government public sector. It really happened. The transition started with the recession in 2008. I worked at the Department of Treasury, and then slowly transitioned to other government agencies. But I didn't do defense work. I didn't truly get into defense work until I got to EY, and I've traveled to numerous Air Force bases and just seen the coolest things. And we have teams we have teams serving the Navy, going to Guam and Hawaii, visiting aircraft carriers. I mean, there's some cool stuff that we see. It's very interesting, and we get to see some cool things along the way, and take some time off and just take tours of bases and things like that. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add to what Sam said. So imagine when you work for a professional services firm as large as EY and as successful as EY, you get a lot of marketable skills, and people will try to recruit you as soon as they can. And I can say for sure that as soon as I got to my second year at EY, I was getting messages from recruiters probably every single week and it never stops. But I've still chosen to stay at EY 7 years later, and the reason I choose to stay is the people here and the relationships I've built with the people here. It's just remarkable to see the investment in my career and how the partners coach me and root for my career and support me. And that's not something I can replicate anywhere else. And also, I really enjoy the work that I do here. And that's really the reason that I stay.
For me, why I stay with EY or have stayed with EY, it kind of hits on a little bit what Sam spoke of in how the firm has been supportive to him, in the COVID environment. But, it extends beyond that for me, having been with the firm since I graduated. There's been many life events or key milestones in my life that have occurred, as an employee of EY, coming out right out of college to getting married, to becoming a parent, having the second kid. And I think, your personal responsibilities in what you value from your personal time and standpoint changes within each of those key events. And what I've really enjoyed is EY has always been supportive throughout each of those events. It is a change, but team members who can help out, when I need to go tend to a sick child, things like that. There's a lot of support and resources just across the board. And, whether, as Sam said, you're by yourself or you have a family of a spouse and kids, that EY is able to support you and provide you with whatever you may need. In terms of the coolest thing that I've experienced, it probably the same as Sam as well, just the travel opportunities. I personally have traveled to Japan for work. I've traveled to Dubai, was able to extend my trip, some vacation time in Dubai and see the city. So a lot of travel opportunities, both domestically and internationally, which has been very neat, and have even been able to take my wife on a few places as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's interesting on the travel. I mean, there's many things I think all of us feel like we're missing out on in this era of COVID, but traveling was one of the neat things that many of us got to experience. I know this time of year is when I would travel around to visit teams throughout the country that work with me or for me to serve my client. So I've gone to Fort Worth, Texas, and Denver, and Florida, and Connecticut, just to kind of meet with those teams and meet with my clients in those locations. That was pretty neat to be able to experience. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that as well. As a partner, or as a leader, as I think about, the great panelists we have and how they ended up getting hired at EY, right? I mean, it's always the question, what do you look for, right? And I think you learn a ton at the business school. I think they prepare students very, very well. But certainly one of the big things is we're working in teams all the time. Nobody's on an island working on a project by themselves. You've got to be able to work really well in teams. And so that's a big part of what we're looking for when we talk to students. Tell us about what your role on a team is. Tell us about a successful project you've had. And ultimately it's bringing a positive attitude and energetic attitude, but also just bringing yourself, right? Like, be yourself. You don't need to sort of impress anybody. You got to come in with a good attitude. You've got to work hard. But we feel really comfortable that, number one, if we're recruiting you from the Smith School, you've got a really good background and skill set to begin with. But number two, we're really confident in our people's ability to coach and our ability to train our people and the tools that we have. So when I think about, what students, should be thinking about and practicing when they come work here, or, what makes a good hire, those are some of the key things, especially early on in your career. So I think with that, I'm going to invite Ellen back to the panel, because I think one of the questions really would be good for her to speak to. And And that question, Ellen, is really about fintech. I think we've got a really great fintech practice, and so as you think about students trying to break into the fintech industry, especially consulting, what should they be thinking about? What's some advice you have to share with them?
So thanks, Mark, and it was a really good panel. So thank you for that, and thank you for all the panelists. FinTech is really quite interesting, and I look at it in twofold. So if you go back into the 90s or early 2000s when technology was just coming up, and we were talking about .coms, FinTech and .coms are pretty much the same thing. We just changed the name. So these are all new technology companies that are really focused on disrupting or helping the financial services world, and even further out than financial services. And so there's a couple of things to think about. One is what we look for in a fintech, what I look for is the staying power. Is it a one-trick pony, or is it something that really is going to change the market? Is it something that is going to really make a difference? I'll give you an example, PayPal. PayPal, we consider a fintech. It's one of the larger ones, most successful ones. And there's a whole lot of things that we do with them. We help them through all the regulatory environment. We help them through everything that you can imagine across the spectrum of business strategy. How do they look at their market? How do they expand their market? How do they actually touch and reach their clients through the digital enablement, all the way through internal audit and looking at they're managing their internal processes and their controls appropriately. So that's a bigger one. Getting into a smaller fintech tends to be a bit more challenging because you're taking a little bit more risk, right? So we have to look at what it is that fintech's doing, what is that disruptive technology, and whether or not they have the appropriate funding for it. And so every day I see a lot of these organizations come through. I saw one that was Cross River Bank, for example, and they became the bank to all the fintechs and all these smaller technology companies where a lot of the banks didn't want to work with them or couldn't work with them because the credit wasn't such, or they didn't know how to evaluate them. So, for us, we look at it in three buckets. One is on the audit side. We like to get in there and audit because we can set up the process and the controls so that as they grow their businesses, we can help guide them through that. On the advisory side, it's more of regulatory, and then on the tax side, it's I should say regulatory and compliance. And then on the tax side, every single fintech needs two things. I would say three things, actually. They need advice on audit because it's their controls, it's their basis on how they report. They need advice on tax because as they expand, there's different tax schemes and different methodologies that they need to deploy, especially when they're looking at things like R&D. And then on the regulatory and compliance, if you are touching a bank or the banking industry, you have to operate under the same guidance as a financial institution. And so a lot of that starts to really bring in different sorts of knowledge and practice. So any of those areas somebody can join into and be part of that, but you got to kind of learn the foundation, and you got to kind of learn what do you think is really going to stick and what's not going to stick, because more often than not in the fintech practice, people have really good ideas and they last 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, depending on funding, or it may be something like a PayPal that has the sticking power. So a lot of what we do is kind of say, where do we put our bucks? Where do we actually manage, and how do we actually make that a viable opportunity? And then the other side is being part of a fintech itself that EY looks after.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. The other thing, certainly for the vast majority of our positions, we source them, from the undergraduate and probably masters of accounting and tax programs. I know we have a number of MBA students on the line as well. And we're continuing to work with the Office of Career Services on how we sort of partner with the MBA folks. Ellen, do you want to share any of your experiences in terms of, how we might bring MBAs into our practices?
Yep. So I love both undergrad and MBAs. We love Maryland across the board.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on really where you want to play, right, and where you see your opportunities. For the MBA students, depending on where your focus is, if your focus is on data analytics, we have a whole data analytics program, and we love the MBAs because not only do they have a business background, but then they also have the data background. So it's an added value for us. We also look at folks who actually have some work experience, and so that you're bringing some external thought processes here. I would say to you 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, the career trajectory was, you grew up at EY and you had a linear path into partnership. Today, we look at a whole plethora of folks, including MBAs, and we love to get MBAs in because they have that diversity of thought, they have some training already, and they bring something more to the table in the sense of having external experience and more depth of experience. So we look at both. And everything across the board from our technology practices, our data and analytics practice, and tax. Our tax practice is a great area for the MBAs, as well as our consulting practice. So we look at that, and if people are really interested in that, we could have Lita get them in touch with me, or obviously in touch with you, Mark. And we're happy to, funnel those opportunities into our own organization. But it's not, you don't have to start as an undergraduate with EY to have a career. And I can tell you, I'm one of those who did not. And I blossomed into a very senior role and a leadership role, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ellen. Scanning through the other questions, I think we'll probably take most of those offline. I think one of the questions was, well, what about, has COVID accelerated the use of data and technology in risk and data analytics? And I guess the answer would be yes, but really over the last 5 years, EY has invested so heavily in technology that I don't know that COVID was really a catalyst for it. It was almost like, it was all there, and it's now proof of concept. Like this works, we're doing it. It's important to our clients now more than ever. And so Ellen, maybe if you want to weigh in on that.
Yep. And so in financial services, and even in like life sciences, it has become absolutely critical from a risk and a compliance perspective. When people work from home and you're in a banking world, they have to actually have proof that they've continued to have the controls and the processes lined up and documented. And technology is at the forefront of that, and our ability to manage through that, because the regulators will be coming in and doing a look back when everything calms down to say, how did you actually manage through those processes? And so there's all sorts of technologies and technology enablers that we've actually built, and that we've partnered with many of our alliance partners. So we work with folks like Microsoft, and you name all the big ones. We work with Google. We work with a ton of these organizations that actually help us bring these technologies to market. And so and I just named a couple, but certainly our ability to change the way people have worked and the way that we've actually moved off into our own into this virtual environment has been nothing but really paramount in the way that we look at technology and enablement. And so it will be a very, very big look, and it also will be dependent upon who we have as president. Some of this is actually implicitly tied to politics as well. If you get a Democratic president in, there may be more risk and controls that need to be put around, and more compliance that you have to do. If the president that's in there today stays as is, we may not have that. So we are always having to juggle the impact of risk and compliance, and how do we actually solve it with technology solutions. Very little is done today on that is done manually. And as a matter of fact, when we do see it, we kind of laugh and chuckle because that's a huge opportunity for us. But risk and compliance is a huge area. It is technology driven. It will be technology driven. And lookbacks will happen from regulators where they will have to get data. And that goes back and ties to the data analytics. And one other point I want to make to everybody here. Everything is inextricably tied. You do not do business just in tax and it doesn't have an impact on something else. You don't do business in audit and it doesn't have an impact on something else. Everything that we look at today, whether it starts with people, process, technology, it is all inextricably linked. You can't solve one problem without having a trickle-down effect to something else. And that is where my role and Mark's role comes in to make sure that we are thinking across that so that when we solve a problem, we're solving it for the entirety, not just a piece of a project. Sorry, Mark, back to you.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you, Ellen. Sad that I think we're basically out of time, but do want, a lot of really good questions came in. Before everybody drops, I do want to go over a few key dates and ways to connect with us here at EY. So again, to the students who joined, I want to thank you for investing your time with us today. There's many ways to stay connected with us at EY. So there's social media such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can sort of do that globally, right? You can sort of follow EY on all those platforms, but you can also connect with any of us on the panel and Ellen as a way to build your network and develop relationships. Also, EY is going to participate in the Business School Career Fair. That's on September 17th and 18th. And then the deadline to apply for our upcoming full-time and internship opportunities, which you can find in Hire Smith, is September 22nd. So again, I want to say that again because it comes really quick. That's actually in 2 weeks. September 22nd is the deadline to apply for the positions at EY in Hire Smith. That's really the best way to apply for jobs, is to do it that way through the Office of Career Services. Lastly, our campus recruiter, her name is Lolita Hill. She has virtual office hours, and you can meet with her to learn more about EY. Ask her some of the questions you've been asking. She may not be able to answer some of those, but she can find the right person to get you answers for those questions. And she'll look at your resume, talk about career tracks, talk about all the different opportunities at EY. And you can visit Hire Smith to schedule some time with Lolita. Also, just want to say thank you to our EY professionals, Sam, Sharon, Shanice, Mike, Claudia, and Ellen. And more importantly, for them sharing their time, but more importantly, their insights. So really relevant and helpful. Really hope you got to take something out of today. You can learn a lot about what we do technically, reading about things online. And I hope that this crew was able to bring some of that to life for you, but also just sort of give you the value proposition of why we really like working at EY, why we think it's a great place to work. And again, just give a little bit more, here's why we do think students are rating us #1 as the best professional services firm to come out of college. Lastly, just a special thank you to the Smith School for their support of today's event. And once again, thank you to the students, and this now concludes our session.